Alright, so I'm bored and I just finished watching the James Bond movies recently. I got them from Netflix and watched them in chronological order in a couple of months. So I figured why not make a video and talk about James Bond, do a little retrospective of James Bond in film. Um, James Bond's a great character, one of my favorite characters of all time. Um, Even as a kid, I loved James Bond. I still, love that character to this day. Just an icon. Every man wants to be Bond. Put on a tuxedo, make girls go to bed with you, and save the world all in time for dinner. Just a classic film character. And you have some great movies here, some fantastic movies, some horrible movies, and some mediocre average movies, and we'll get through all of them. Not gonna go in depth through each one because there's 23 of them, so that would be a very fucking long video. But I'll glaze over each one, and especially the Bonds themselves. That being said, I am just talking about Eon Bond Productions. Eon is Everything or Nothing, the production company that does the James Bond movies, those canon ones. So I'm not talking about Casino Royale, the '60s movie, the '60s Casino Royale movie, or Never Say Never Again. I'm just focusing on the James Bond series that is still around to this day. The movies of that series, produced by Saltzman and Broccoli. Alright, so James Bond. The first James Bond movie is Doctor No, the one that starts it all. Doctor No is great. Just a great way to start off the series. Of course, our first Bond is Sean Connery, and to this day, you can't get better than Sean Connery. I mean, that guy, just everything about him exudes James Bond. He just oozes James Bond. That's who he is, man. When people think of James Bond, they think of Sean Connery in the tuxedo, lighting the cigarette, saying "Bond, James Bond." There are other actors afterwards who did play great Bonds, but for me, Sean Connery, that's the centerpiece. That's the Messiah. That's the big one. That's the one you go to when you are describing James Bond. So Doctor No, great movie. Really fun, very fun movie. It was made in 1962, I believe, and still to this day, it's fun. It's fun getting to know the character, seeing him. He wasn't. It wasn't the movie that defined the way a Bond movie is per se. That comes a couple movies later, but this was a really fun one. Great, arguably the greatest Bond girl of all time, Honey Rider, played by Ursula Andress in that bathing suit coming out the water. That's you know, classic cinematic moment. You see it all the time. Good villain in Doctor No. Good villain there, and I believe, yes, this is the start of the whole Spectre thing. So it starts with the first movie, the whole running storyline throughout the movies with Spectre. But this is a really fun one. This isn't filled with gadgets the way later Bond movies are. This doesn't have a main theme song, a title credit song that the name of the movie. But other than that, other than it not being the the basis of what, not having some of the components, this kicked ass. This movie, it really did. The theme is used great. The James Bond theme, they played throughout the whole fucking movie pretty much, and it's awesome because they knew they had fucking gold in their hands. Yeah, fantastic movie from start to finish. And then you get From Russia with Love a year later. And From Russia with Love is even better than Doctor No. I mean, Doctor No is very fucking good, but From Russia with Love is just, top two, top three James Bond movies of all time. I love From Russia with Love. It's got just a great plot, a great storyline. It took the storytelling to a new height. and you saw them starting to create the mold more and more of how a James Bond movie wasn't perfected yet, but we're starting to get some gadgets. We get Desmond Llewellyn. I forgot how to say his last name, but the main guy who plays Q throughout the series. This is his first movie, and the pieces start coming into place of the way a James Bond movie looks, the definitive James Bond movie, which comes right after this. Um, you get a main title song, even though it's not played in the beginning, it's playing in the end credits. But the main thing about this one is the characters. You have Rosa Klebb, the girl with the Russian agent with the the poison knife that comes out of her shoe. Um, Robert Shaw plays a great villain, very just cold, steel blue-eyed villain. And the Bond girl Tatiana Romanova is great. Very beautiful girl. A lot of chemistry between her and Sean Connery. Sean Connery, another great output of acting here. Great, still great in the role of Bond, and like I said, the story itself, with Spectre trying to steal a cryptographic device from the Russians and sell it back to them to try to start this type of war between the Allied forces and the Russians. It's great. So then we get Goldfinger. Goldfinger is the definitive Bond movie. When if there's somebody that doesn't know who James Bond is or doesn't never seen a James Bond movie and they want to see what James Bond is all about, Goldfinger is the one you show them to. It just puts all the elements in place. You have the greatest theme title song of any James Bond movie is Goldfinger by I think it was Shirley Bassey. You get the fun, the witty double entendre names for the girls, even though you did have that in Doctor No with Honey Rider, but there's none more infamous than Pussy Galore. Just a great character, a great name for a character. I don't know how they got away with that in 1964. And you get the gadgets. You're starting to get the gadgets, and you really see Connery starting to really have fun with his role. He's really totally morphed into James Bond at this point. You get the vodka martini shaken not stirred line. So this is the point where James Bond really becomes James Bond. The two previous movies were fantastic, but it felt like they were all working up to this. The big lush production, the gadgets, just the big scope, everything was done grand and huge, and the great villain, well, arguably the greatest Bond villain of all time, Goldfinger himself. I love that line when he says, Bond says, "Do you expect me to talk or something?" He goes, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die." I mean, great stuff, great writing, fantastic fucking movie from start to finish. The only thing is that this movie, what it did was so good, but for the future of James Bond, unfortunately, because they tried to outdo Goldfinger, this is the movie where after this they started getting a little silly because they started trying to put more gadgets and doing more things and more ridiculous stuff. So this, even though I can't fault this movie because this movie did it greatly, but James Bond movies afterwards, tried to top this one, therefore making it silly, making James Bond a caricature rather than a great character, all becoming all about gadgets and this and that rather than focusing on the character himself. But Goldfinger is probably the best Bond movie of all time. And then you get Thunderball. Thunderball's good. Not as good as the first three. This is when Sean Connery's James Bond run starts slipping, starts going downhill. But Thunderball is a good movie. My problem with it is that it's a little too long, about 20-30 minutes too long. The but it is big. It's an extravagant movie. You could tell they were trying to outdo anything they've done before. And while I do tip my hat off for the underwater action scene, it's very drawn out and it gets old fast. And it's like, all right, resolve this and finish the movie. Emilio Largo, good character, good villain. I did like him as the villain. Um, and this is a good movie, but it's just it felt like they were trying to outdo themselves a little too much. They should have just compressed it a little more, taken 20 minutes off of the running time, and you would have had a fantastic film. But still, a good James Bond movie. Then you get You Only Live Twice, and this is when it starts getting rough. Now, this isn't a terrible movie by any means. I like You Only Live Twice, but you could tell that Sean Connery was starting to wear off of the role. He was starting to phone it in a little bit. I feel horrible for saying that because Sean Connery is James Bond, but you could tell he was starting to get tired of the role. This was his fifth James Bond movie in like 5 years, so that's a lot of playing the same fucking character. And it got silly, like, they were trying to pass him off as a Japanese person in the plot, and it's like, and they gave him like the Japanese haircut. It was like, alright, this is starting to get into silly land rather than focusing on the coolness of James Bond. James Bond portraying a Japanese man doesn't seem cool to me, but it did have a great title song by Nancy Sinatra. And it had some good action moments. It wasn't horrible. I remember liking this one a lot as a kid. I really like this one. It's worn off since then, but this is where the Bond series starts falling apart for me. Is not a great plot. It's an okay plot. It's a serviceable plot. The main villain in this one is Blofeld, who we are hinted at throughout all the previous movies, but this is the first time we see him, and it's Donald Pleasance playing him. And I remember, loving Donald Pleasance as Blofeld, but when I watched it today, it was kind of, it was just like, that's it. They didn't really use him a lot. And it was kind of upsetting because they're building up for 4 movies to this master of this, this terrorist organization that wants to just take over the world. And, I didn't feel like they gave him enough in this movie. Classic the way they had him with the fucking scar, Dr. Evil stole it, petting the cat and all that. But I don't know, there was something about it that was very bland, that didn't live up to all the hype that was going into the character. But whatever, it's an okay movie. It's an above average movie, but not as good as the first 4. And then you get a total change of pace. You get On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is a new Bond, George Lazenby. Sean Connery and the producers of Bond had a falling out. They couldn't see eye to eye anymore. He wanted more money and they didn't want to give it to him. So they got a new Bond, George Lazenby, and he was not an actor. He was a model. He totally bullshit his way through the acting interviews, told them that he was a professional actor even though he wasn't, and lied himself into getting the role of James Bond. That's pretty amazing itself to be able to fucking do that, to lie to these big production guys and get the role. I remember as a kid I hated this fucking movie because it's just this weird guy playing James Bond, taking over the role from Sean Connery. And as a kid watching it, it has a deeper story, so you don't appreciate it as a kid. And I didn't like this movie at all when I was a kid, and then when I watched it now, this is a fantastic fucking movie. George Lazenby, yes, he is not a good Bond, not a good actor. He doesn't really have any business being an actor. You could tell he's forcing his lines, he's just reading off of a script. But everything else in this movie is great. And I can't imagine if they got the right actor to do this, like this easily could have been, the best or the second best James Bond movie, but that does take points away because in a James Bond movie you have to have a good James Bond. I mean, that is your focal point. But besides that, the story is fantastic. Easily the most tender, romantic, intimate James Bond story of all time. It's more romantic. It has more romance in it than Casino Royale, I believe. Even though Casino Royale is not far away, and it also is more personal to me. Well, I don't know. Skyfall might be a little more personal, but this is also a very personal one. But yeah, we get Blofeld also is in this, played by a different actor. I forgot his name. But he was in Annie. That's all I know. He was Daddy Warbucks in Annie. But he does a good job. And great action sequences. Great great Bond girl. And basically the main thing in this one is James Bond gets married. He falls in love with this girl. She's like a count, like an Italian countess or something like that. And they get married. He falls in love with her, and it's like, holy shit, James Bond has a heart. James Bond has, a romantic feelings for a woman. He usually just uses them as objects. So that's what really, makes this movie stand out. And the ending is just heartbreaking. The music, the score for this movie is fantastic. John Barry's "We Have All the Time in the World." That theme is beautiful. One of the most beautiful pieces of music I've ever heard. And then at the end, James Bond gets married, and they're driving off after their wedding, and Blofeld drives by, and one of his women henchmen shoots James Bond's wife, and she dies right in his arms. It's like, holy shit. What a heartbreaking fucking ending to a movie. A James Bond movie, it's usually fun. He's usually, gets away with the girl at the end, and, they have sex, and it says the end, and that's it. But, this was, I tip my hat off, because this was different. I don't think the audience was ready for this movie. That's why it didn't do very good. This wasn't what they were expecting, but now, watching it now, this is a classic James Bond movie, and just very unique. Then Sean Connery comes back in Diamonds Are Forever. One of my least favorite James Bond movies. Sean Connery should have just stayed away and quit. You could tell at this point he was just doing it for the money, and I think everybody else who made this movie just did it for the fucking money. Because this movie sucked. It was horrible. I mean, I really don't have any redeeming things in this movie. The Bond girls are horrible. The acting is laughable at best. The villains, I forgot their name, but they're two fucking dopes. Not the main villain, but who is Blofeld, this time played by another person, the third person playing Blofeld, and he does it in like a campy, comedic way. That's the thing with this movie, is that Bond starts becoming campy and comedic, and it's like, why? After, taking a different direction with On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I guess because that didn't do well in the box office, they tried to go the total opposite. But it's unfortunate because that was a good new direction. We were going to new places. But now we go to this campy, stupid, dumb direction for James Bond, and that is what becomes the emphasis for the Roger Moore movies that come after this. This, people say that, Roger Moore ruined James Bond for a while, but this is the one that kicked that off. It was obvious that the production company was going that way with Diamonds Are Forever, and then they just kept it fucking going forever with Roger Moore. Just campy, stupid, retarded. I don't like the soundtrack. I don't like anything about this movie. Sean Connery doesn't even play Bond. He just plays some bored guy making money. Horrible. Then you get the first Roger Moore movie. Roger Moore is James Bond. Roger Moore. I really just do not like Roger Moore as James Bond. I know he is the longest running person to play James Bond. He played 7 movies, beating Connery's 6. But James Bond, a tough, rugged, man who just, kicks ass and does horrible things and, horrible things the way he treats women and, that's not Roger Moore, Roger Moore was this, nice grandpa guy. He was like your nice, crazy, creepy grandpa. Very subdued, and it was all about one-liners and quips rather than being a man of action. Somebody that you could believe is gonna, bring this girl home and, have all the girls fighting for them and save the day. Roger Moore did not have those attributes. So his first movie was Live and Let Die. This movie is not good. Not his worst James Bond movie, not the worst James Bond movie, but not good. It's just very weird. I mean, yeah, it's like a blaxploitation James Bond film. That's what it is. It's, they're in Harlem, and it's weird. James Bond, it's usually like these lush, exotic places, and it's in fucking Harlem, disgusting fucking New York. But yeah, the Bond girl was great. What was her Solitaire? She was a great Bond girl, great actress. So she adds points to the movie, and the title song "Live and Let Die" by Paul McCartney and the Wings is fucking fantastic. And it's not horrible, but it's just weird and awkward. It's like a black James Bond movie. It's just, I don't know. So yeah, and the effects start getting really fucking bad. He puts in the end when he's fighting Mr. Big, the main villain, like there's this device that like expands like a balloon, and he makes Mr. Big swallow it, and then they're in the water, and then he floats out the water, and he just expands like a fucking balloon, like fucking Super Mario, when you take that fucking pea thing and it makes him fat and you could float with him in Super Mario. That's how this guy looks, and he gets really fat, and his head touches the goes up against the wall, and he explodes. But it looks so fucking fake. It's bad. It's really laughable. And I also believe you get the Sergeant Pepper guy. Is it Sergeant Pepper? I don't know. Sergeant fucking something. And he's a fucking retarded motherfucker. Just a stupid character. Very campy and comedic and not funny. It's one of those... I hate these type of characters in movies. The comedic character that just is not funny. You get these in a lot of movies, a lot of bad movies that they're there for comedic effect, but they're not funny in the fucking slightest. They're just plain downright annoying. And that's how this guy is. And unfortunately, he's in the next James Bond movie also, which is The Man with the Golden Gun. Now, this is a bad movie. This is definitely in like the top 5 for worst James Bond movies. It's just so forgettable and bland, and nothing happens. I mean, Christopher Lee does a good job. I forgot his name in the movie. Scaramanga. That's his name. He does a good job, and but it's just bad movie. Boring, bland. It doesn't feel like a James Bond movie at all. And you have the sergeant guy back in it, and there's like this. They do this weird like effect. So he's driving off of like this little like ledge because he's like chasing somebody, and it's like driving off of a ledge, and it's over water, and the car spins while he does it, and it's like as if this was like a parody. It goes, the special effect for this literally goes, I'm not joking, when the car goes, it goes, whoop, whoop, and it does that effect. I'm like, what is this, a fucking circus movie? We're making a clown movie here? This isn't James Bond, man. So this was a horrible movie, didn't like it. Then you get The Spy Who Loved Me, Roger Moore's shining moment. And, this is his best movie. And yeah, he didn't make great movies, so it's not saying a lot. But this was actually a really fucking good James Bond movie. So much iconic things. Nobody Does It Better by Carly Simon, the title song. It's fantastic. The opening sequence is arguably one of the greatest opening sequences of a James Bond movie, where he skis off the cliff and parachutes, and the Britain flag on the parachute, and you hear banana banana banana. Fantastic. Jaws, the villain, probably the most memorable James Bond villain of all time. And the Bond girl, Anya Asimova or something like that, the Russian chick, hot, beautiful, great actress, Ringo Starr's wife, and Roger Moore. He does come through in this one. This is a movie made for him, and it works. This is the one time where it really works, because does have over the top portions, but it all works. It all comes together. You could tell that they were struggling, and they pulled out all the stops to get a successful Bond movie, and this was the one. Very exciting, very entertaining, funny, good action, just memorable. That's, if I could sum this one up in one word, it's very, very memorable. Love this movie. Then you get Moonraker, and now we start getting silly again. Just stupid silly. This is Bond in space, James Bond in space. I guess, they were inspired by Star Wars, so they figured, alright, let's put James Bond in space. So this isn't his worst movie, though. Because, this went so overboard that you kind of get used to it, and because it doesn't take itself seriously. That's the thing. Like, for how overboard it goes, you get into that tone, and then you start liking parts of it. I didn't hate this movie at all. I did enjoy Moonraker, even though it is fucking silly. I mean, James Bond in space, they're fighting in space with fucking laser guns and shit. But it's, that's what makes the movie good, is that it goes so over the fucking top. Not good acting with the Bond girl. I didn't like her. I forgot what her name was. I think it was like Holly Goodhead or something. The villain, I don't even fucking remember who the villain... Oh yeah, I remember who the villain was. The villain was alright. You get Jaws, though. This was the bad one. Jaws turns into a good guy, and he falls in love with this girl. And they play that really cheesy music, the dun, 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 and they hug and embrace each other, and it's just like... It's funny, like, watching it, and it's enjoyable, but when you think about it, it's like, holy shit, this is where James Bond is now. This is what James Bond has become. So it's a rough movie to, like, give a rating for, because it's enjoyable to see how, much they try to do. But if you're thinking, is this a James Bond movie? No, it's not. This is not how James Bond is supposed to be. But the next one I really don't like. I think the next one was For Your Eyes Only. And people like this one, but I found it boring and just bland. One thing is, they did try to get more realistic. They knew when they did Moonraker they had to pull back the reins and stop. That's as far as they could go. Where do you take James Bond after he's fighting in fucking space? So they tried to get more realistic, try to do more of, just the spy plot storyline rather than doing all this crazy shit. But this movie lacked oomph. It lacked, chutzpah, whatever you want to fucking say. It lacked the pizzazz, it didn't, I don't know, it didn't have oomph to me. The Bond girl is horrible. Probably one of the worst Bond girls of all time. Just horrible acting. Horrible. And I just didn't like the score. I thought the score was fucking bad. I think this was the one that Bill Conti did, so it's like, Bill Conti did the Rocky soundtrack, and it sounds like, stuff from Rocky 3, and it doesn't make sense for James Bond. It's that disco funky type of fucking music. It's like, what? What's going on? That's not a suave British secret agent song. So I didn't like this movie at all. And then you get Octopussy. Octopussy is it's one of those average, bad, like not good to average movies. I mean, you have James Bond in a gorilla suit. You have James Bond wearing in a fucking clown suit with clown makeup on, and this is what Roger Moore James Bond has become. This is what Roger Moore being Bond has done to the character. He's a fucking clown. James Bond has become a parody of himself. It's like you're watching Austin Powers before Austin Powers was made. It was spoofing James Bond. It was making fun of James Bond. But it does have some good sequences. It does have a interesting plot. A good Bond girl. I forgot the actress that played her. Actress who played Octopussy, but this is okay. Not very good. Eh. Then you get probably. A lot of people say this is the worst Bond movie of all time. I don't know if it's the worst. It probably is. Just because it's Roger Moore's fucking 60 years old. You have fucking Grace Jones as a Bond girl, and it's just so weird. James Bond is hitting on girls, and he's 60 years old. He's hitting on girls fucking 40 years younger than him. Like, they should be calling the fucking police on this guy. A View to a Kill. Only good thing about this is seeing Christopher Walken in a movie. Christopher Walken is, great actor. And that's the best part of this movie. Otherwise, Grace Jones as a Bond girl is just fucking weird. This movie's just too weird to fucking talk about. Not a very good, just a more complex story than it had to be. And the action scenes were just like, you had Christopher Walken, like, machine gunning down a bunch of fucking people who worked for him. And it was just getting, like, too much. That's not fucking James Bond. That's not suave. That's not, elegant. It was becoming, that's like something you'd see from an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie. That's not James Bond. But yeah, this one wasn't good at all. Then, finally, Roger Moore retires from the role. Thank God. And we can move on. And we get to Timothy Dalton. And Timothy Dalton did 2 Bond movies. And he gets a lot of flack, and it's not warranted because the series itself at this time was in, shambles. It was in a bad place. And he became Bond when the series was really slugging and didn't know what to do and where to go. So, it's not his fault that, these movies were unsuccessful. But Living Daylights, his first movie, I liked a lot. It's one of my, top 10 favorite James Bond movies, The Living Daylights. Very good fucking storyline, very interesting plot, good, like, little things like, when he has to shoot the he's sniping and he has to assassinate the another person who's... Alright, so James Bond's protecting this Russian agent who's, defecting, and there's a Russian sniper who's trying to kill that agent. James Bond has to kill that sniper, and then he realizes it's a girl, so he can't pull the trigger. It's just like great little scenes like that. And the girl who it is the main Bond girl, this Russian girl, beautiful blonde Russian girl, fucking beautiful. I don't know if she's really Russian, but she's very beautiful. And this is just a fun movie, and it's just like a breath of fresh air, seeing a serious take on James Bond, because that's one thing that Timothy Dalton did, and people complain about, is that his Bond was very dark, very serious, very introverted, but I don't understand why people complain about that, because weren't they just complaining about how stupid and campy and comedic and spoofy Roger Moore's Bond was, and now they get a serious take and they complain that it's too serious? So that didn't make sense. And when you're watching them chronologically, seeing this is a breath of fresh fucking air that's much needed to finally delve into some serious stuff. So I love The Living Daylights. I think it's a fantastic movie. Timothy Dalton's best. License to Kill is where I understand that it was getting too dark. I mean, you have sharks fucking eating people alive and shit. And, Felix Leiter, like, loses his arm or his leg or something. His fucking fiance is killed. Um, but it's an okay movie. It's not horrible. It's good. It's not one of the worst Bond movies of all time, but you could tell this is where it was getting too dark. A notable thing is Benicio del Toro in an early role playing a villain, and he dies a grisly, gruesome fucking death. But this is stuff for Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, Sylvester Stallone movies, or something. This isn't James Bond. This was becoming too dark, too, you know, dreary and sinister in a way. But this still was a serviceable movie. Had a serviceable drug plot, but a drug plot, that's not something we want in a James Bond movie. That's the thing. So this, went a little too far. And then you get Pierce Brosnan as James Bond. People love Pierce Brosnan as James Bond. Now, he did look the role of James Bond. He had the James Bond look, but when you look at his resume of James Bond movies, one good movie for Pierce Brosnan. He looked like Bond. He looked good in the tuxedo, but movie-wise, not a very successful record. GoldenEye, though, was fantastic. GoldenEye is a great fucking movie. Spawned what I think is the greatest video game of all time, GoldenEye for N64. The greatest video game of all time. And this movie, is just so good. Just brought James Bond into a modern era perfectly. A great plot. Pierce Brosnan had fun playing the role. Xenia on the top, great female villain. A great male villain, Alec Trevelyan, and Judi Dench as M. Iconic for being the first female M, and she'd play M for years and years to come. But this was just great fucking action movie, just fantastic. One of the greatest James Bond movies of all time. But then you get Tomorrow Never Dies. This to me, Pierce Brosnan, one by one they start getting worse and worse. So this is an average movie. It's not horrible yet, but they're starting to get too gadgety. You realize they're focusing too much on gadgets, and it had an okay plot, but kind of silly with this journalist, this newspaper owner, starting to start World War III, and it's a little over the top. It's a very forgettable James Bond movie too, so it's eh. Then you get The World Is Not Enough, and this one was just way too fucking complex. I still don't understand the fucking plot after thinking about it for days and days. I don't think the people who wrote this understood what the fuck they were writing. It's just, there's this fucking guy that's dying, and then there's this villain that's dying, and he's working with this girl that he kidnapped, but it was a setup as a kidnap, and she had Stockholm syndrome, and she fell in love with him, and she killed her father to take over his oil business, and this and that, and you have Denise Richards as fucking a nuclear physicist, like anybody fucking believes that. It was like, whoa, just give me a fucking, give me James Bond drinking a martini, picking up women. You don't have to do all this fucking weird, complex, convoluted plot shit. So, this was a step down. And then you get the worst Pierce Brosnan movie of all time. Arguably the worst James Bond movie of all time, and Die Another Day. Holy fucking shit, this sucked. Halle Berry as the Bond girl, and she just does these corny fucking one-liners. And they're on this like ice planet, or it's weird. They're on this fucking like ice. They're in this Iceland, ice fucking city, and it's like made by this fucking Chinese guy, and he's James Bond is like kite surfing on a tsunami, and it's like, what? There's an invisible fucking car. An invisible car is his new gadget, and this was where, special effects were taking over the fucking game. Let's just focus on the characters a little bit, focus on plot a little bit. Let's stop trying to show off all these stupid fucking gadgets and trying to, make money with marketing and promotion tie-ins, sponsors and shit. So this was horrible, god awful movie. And the Madonna's theme song was just like, what? That's not a fucking Bond song. It was weird. It was like one, techno dance song. And then finally we get some fucking realism, stripped back to the basic roots of James Bond, which was much needed in Casino Royale. Daniel Craig, top 3 Bond movie of all time, easily. This was a fantastic movie. I remember first watching it and loving it, and each time loving more and more. Such a good fucking plot, and intimate, romantic, and just really brought Bond back down to earth. Brought him back down to where you could relate to him, where you could understand that he's a fucking person, where he has, feelings and emotions. They focused on giving us a character study rather than giving us invisible cars and fucking kite surfing a tsunami. Great movie from start to finish. The way they introduce us to Bond. This is, Bond before he became Bond. This was, before he was he wasn't even a double agent, I don't think. I think he just became a double agent in the first scene. So this is like a prequel. Even though, it's not, following faithfully to every single James Bond movie. This is starting its own thing. But, this is him becoming Bond. And it's fantastic. The romance story with him and Vesper Lind is great. Lashif, the guy who plays Hannibal, Mads Mikkelsen or something like that, fantastic. Daniel Craig got a lot of hate, and I gotta give credit to him. Everybody said, no way, this guy is Bond. Bond is not blonde. Bond does not have blue eyes. Bond is not, some short looking, blonde guy, but he really pulled it off. He really proved the critics wrong, proved me wrong. I doubted him, and he's my second favorite Bond of all time. Just really focused on the character. They said, okay, what made Bond successful? What made people fall in love with Bond in the first place? And they gave us that. So fantastic movie. Unfortunately, Quantum of Solace, the next Bond movie, falls off. This is just a clusterfuck of a movie. The director was horrible. You get this convoluted plot with, this guy is trying to take over oil, but then it's revealed he's trying to take over, like, the water business, and it's just too much political shit. It gets way too political, and the action scenes are just dizzying. You literally can't sit through them because it's the shaky cam. And for me, shaky cam is the worst form of filmmaking possible, because you don't know what the fuck is happening. You don't know who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. You don't know if James Bond is beating somebody up or if he's getting beat up. You don't know anything that's happening. So, and for James Bond, it's about, these lush pieces, this lush cinematography and, exquisite camera shots and exotic things, and you don't get that. It's all fucking this. But yeah, just very forgettable movie, and the shaky cam makes you want to throw up while you're watching it. I mean, that is not how an action movie looks. It's not supposed to look like the guy who's filming it had a seizure and epilepsy at the same time. Then you get Skyfall, the last Bond movie to this date, and Skyfall is fantastic, from start to finish. Everything about it, the Adele's title song, exotic locales, memorable villain by Javier Bardem, easily the best Bond villain, in the, since Jaws, I think. You get, just the one thing about it is that it didn't have a Bond girl, a really main Bond girl, but instead of that, it gave us an insight into Bond's past life. And really, the main Bond girl in this was M. That's one of the great things of this movie. This really gave us a lot of M. She wasn't just, somebody that just gave James Bond a mission to do. She really played a pivotal role in this one, and we got pieces of James Bond's childhood growing up. You know, it brought back the Aston Martin, a car that Sean Connery drove. You know, the vintage original theme, not, you know, redone, but the original James Bond theme. Um, you know, so this had everything: the great music, the exotic locales. Um, you know, just classic James Bond. You know, just the car, um, the classic villain. You know, everything about this. Seeing James Bond in a tuxedo in Shanghai, just fucking awesome. Not I don't know if I don't think it's as good as Casino Royale, but it's right there. I'm telling you, it's right there. But it is very emotional when M does die at the hands of Javier Bardem's character, and you know, that's it for her as M, and she's had a long fucking career with that character. So, in James Bond, he gets a little emotional a little bit. But what I liked about this movie so much was that it was, you know, James Bond losing a step. You know, it's questioning, is James Bond too old to matter anymore? You know, it was like Dark Knight Rises, kind of, where, like, you know, he's starting to get old, and can he keep up? He's starting to lose his step, and, you know, he gets shot, and he eventually has to work his way back into getting into the field and keeping up. And it's like, is James? It's basically asking, is James Bond still important? You know, to this day, with all these different action movies, with, you know, the Jason Bourne type of action movies, you know, is James Bond still important? And he shows nobody does it better than James Bond. So there you go. There's all 23 fucking Bond movies. That was a long video, but you know what, it's you know, they're good stuff to talk about. You know, I might have got a little long winded, but if you stuck with me, congratulations. And I think the next James Bond movie comes out in 2016. 2015 or 2016. It might be 2015 actually. I think it is 2015. It's made by the same director as Skyfall, so that's cool. So it looks like it's gonna be a follow up to Skyfall. You know, the same style, which is great. I'll review that in like 2 years when it comes out. But yeah, there you go. Let me know your thoughts, your favorite Bond movies, your worst Bond movies, your favorite Bonds, your worst Bonds, memories, anything related to Bond. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Jay Shady, the voice of reason. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you later.